I need to tell you about the year I almost married into a disaster I didn't even see coming. My name's Jake. I'm 28, work as a software engineer for a mid-sized tech company in Denver, and up until about 6 months ago, I thought I had my life pretty well figured out. Good job, decent apartment, solid group of friends I'd known since college. The kind of crew where you don't have to explain yourself because they already know the punchline before you finish the joke. I met Qley at a coffee shop near my office. She was working remotely, had her laptop open with about 15 tabs running, and when her order got called wrong for the third time, she just laughed it off. That's what got me, actually. The patience. The easy smile. I was so tired of Denver dating where every conversation felt like a job interview where both people were lying on their resumes. We started dating casually. Nothing dramatic, just the normal progression. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates turned into weekends where we'd meal prep together and watch her try to explain why The Bachelor was actually very strategic, while I pretended to follow along. She was sweet, thoughtful. The kind of girlfriend who'd remember I mentioned liking a specific beer 3 weeks ago and surprise me with a 6-pack. For the first few months, everything was easy. That should have been my first warning sign, honestly. Nothing good is ever that easy. The cracks started showing around month 4 when I finally met her childhood friends, Morgan and Lexi. I remember the exact moment I knew something was off. We were at this bar in Lodoo, one of those places with exposed brick and overpriced craft cocktails that taste like someone liquefied a garden. Qley was so excited for me to meet them. She'd been talking them up for weeks. My girls, she called them. We've been best friends since middle school. They're going to love you. Morgan showed up first. Mid-20s, professionally done hair, engagement ring so big I was genuinely concerned about her hand's structural integrity. She gave me a once-over that felt like a home inspection, then decided I was acceptable enough to acknowledge. "So you're the engineer," she said, like it was an accusation. "Qley says you're doing well." "I do okay," I said. "That's good. You need to be doing well if you're going to keep up with our girl." She laughed, but there was something sharp underneath it. "Qley deserves someone stable, you know, someone who can take care of her." Qley jumped in, clearly uncomfortable. "Morgan, stop. Jake's great. Tell her about the project you're working on, babe." Before I could answer, Lexi arrived. She had a 2-year-old kid balanced on her hip and a look on her face that suggested she'd rather be literally anywhere else. Her boyfriend Tyler trailed behind her carrying a diaper bag that looked like it weighed more than the child. "Sorry we're late," Lexi said, not sounding sorry at all. "Tyler took forever getting Noah ready." Tyler opened his mouth, probably to defend himself, but Lexi was already handing him the kid and heading to the bar. "I need a drink. Tyler, you got him." I watched Tyler nod, shifting the toddler to a more comfortable position, and something about the whole interaction just felt wrong. Not wrong like abusive, but wrong like watching someone slowly disappear into a role they never auditioned for. The evening got progressively weirder. Morgan spent 20 minutes showing us her wedding Pinterest board, talking about the $10,000 engagement ring her fiancé Mark had saved up for, then casually mentioned she'd made out with some guy in the bathroom of a club the previous weekend. "It didn't mean anything," she said, laughing like it was a funny anecdote about getting the wrong coffee order. "What happens in the club bathroom stays in the club bathroom, right?" I looked at Qley, waiting for her to react, to say something, anything. She just laughed along. "You're so bad, Morgan." That was it. "You're so bad." Like Morgan had told a slightly off-color joke instead of admitting to cheating on her fiancé a month before their wedding. Lexi, meanwhile, spent the entire night talking about her upcoming girls' weekend in Vegas. When Tyler gently suggested that maybe they should discuss the budget first since Noah needed new shoes, Lexi rolled her eyes so hard I was worried she'd strained something. "It's an open relationship, Tyler. We've talked about this. You can go out too if you want." "I can't go out," Tyler said quietly. "Someone has to watch Noah." "Well, that's your choice." It wasn't a choice. That much was obvious to anyone paying attention. But Lexi said it with such conviction that I almost believed her myself. I made it through dinner by drinking more than I should have and perfecting my neutral response. When we finally left, I waited until we were in my car before saying anything. Your friends are interesting, I tried. Qley lit up. I know, right? Aren't they great? I've missed them so much. We used to do everything together before I moved for work. Morgan seems intense. Oh, she's always been like that. She just likes to have fun. Mark knows what he's getting into. I wanted to ask if Mark actually knew. If he knew that his fiancée, the woman he just spent $10,000 on, was having fun with random guys in club bathrooms. But I didn't. Because it was early in the relationship, and I didn't want to be that guy who caused drama over his girlfriend's friends. Big mistake. The next few months were a masterclass in watching someone I cared about slowly lose her grip on reality. It started small. Qley would get texts from Morgan or Lexi and suddenly need to help them with something. The something was usually covering for one of them. Morgan needed an alibi for a night she'd told Mark she was with Qley, but was actually at some guy's apartment. Lexi needed Qley to tell Tyler she'd been with her when she was actually at a club until 3 a.m. At first, Qley seemed uncomfortable with it. She'd hesitate before texting back, would look at me like she wanted permission to say no, but she never did. And after a while, the hesitation disappeared entirely. I remember one specific night that broke something fundamental in how I saw her. We were having dinner at my place. Qley's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned, then started typing rapidly. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just Morgan. She needs me to do her a favor." "What kind of favor?" Qley looked up, and for just a second I saw something I hadn't seen before. Guilt. Real, actual guilt. "Mark's been asking questions about last weekend. Morgan needs me to tell him we were together at my place watching movies and drinking wine." "Were you?" "What?" "Were you together last weekend watching movies?" The silence stretched out long enough that I had my answer before she even opened her mouth. "She's my best friend, Jake. She needs me. She needs you to lie to her fiancé. It's complicated." "It's not complicated, it's dishonest." Qley's face hardened. "You don't understand their relationship." "I understand that Mark's about to marry someone who's been cheating on him, and you're helping her hide it. It's not my business what Morgan does. But it is your business to lie for her." We fought about it for 2 hours. Not the productive kind of fight where you work through things, but the circular kind where you're both just repeating the same points at increasing volumes until someone gives up. I gave up first because I had to be at work early, and also because I realized something terrifying. I couldn't change her mind. She genuinely believed that loyalty to her friends meant helping them destroy their relationships. The breaking point came a few weeks later. Morgan and Lexi had convinced Qley to start an OnlyFans account. "As a joke," they said, "just to see how much money you could make." They framed it as empowerment, as taking control of her sexuality, as a fun experiment between friends. I found out when Qley accidentally left her laptop open and I saw the browser tabs. When I asked her about it, she got defensive immediately. "It's my body, Jake. I can do what I want with it." "Of course you can. But can we talk about why you're doing it?" "Because Morgan and Lexi think it would be fun. And honestly, the money could be good." "Do you want to do it?" She paused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, if Morgan and Lexi weren't pushing this, would you have thought of it yourself?" Another pause, longer this time. "They're not pushing me. They're supporting me." "Right." I knew then that I was done. Not angry done, not betrayed done, but the kind of done where you realize you've been trying to hold on to something that's already gone. Qley wasn't the person I'd met in that coffee shop. Or maybe she was, and I'd just been too optimistic to see it. The truth is, she never cheated on me. Never even came close, as far as I know. But she was actively helping her friends cheat, lie, and manipulate their partners. She was sitting at a table with 3 trashy people, which meant there were 4 trashy people at that table. You can't claim to be a good person while enabling bad behavior. That's not how morality works. I ended it cleanly. No drama, no accusations, no truth bombs about her terrible friends. I just told her I was going through some personal stuff and needed space to work on myself. It was cowardly, maybe, but I didn't want to deal with the fallout of telling her the real reason. I just wanted out. Qley cried. She asked if there was anything she could do. I told her no, that it wasn't about her, that I just needed time. She eventually accepted it, though I could tell she didn't understand. We stopped talking. I deleted her number, unfollowed her on social media, and moved on with my life. Or at least I tried to. For about 2 weeks I felt great, lighter, like I'd been carrying extra weight and finally put it down. My boys noticed immediately. "You're less stressed," my buddy Connor said one night when we were grabbing beers. "What happened? Broke up with Qley?" "Finally," my friend Davis said. "Dude, we were taking bets on how long you'd last with her. You were. You were miserable every time you hung out with her friends. It was painful to watch." "Why didn't you say anything?" Connor shrugged. "Bro code. You don't tell a guy his girlfriend sucks unless he asks. You ask, we answer." "Well, she's gone now." "Good, you deserve better than someone who makes you that stressed." That should have been the end of it. Clean break, lessons learned, move forward. But then I started thinking about Mark. I didn't know Mark, we'd never met. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. This guy who'd saved up $10,000 for an engagement ring, who was planning a wedding, probably already sent out save the dates, booked a venue, told his family about this woman he loved. And she was destroying him. Morgan was going to marry him, take half his stuff eventually, and keep cheating the entire time. And when it all fell apart, Mark would be left wondering what he did wrong, questioning himself, paying for a divorce lawyer while Morgan moved on to her next victim. I kept thinking about that engagement ring. $10,000, that's not impulse buy money. That's I worked overtime for months money. That's I care about making her happy money. And she was in a club bathroom with some random guy the next weekend. It ate at me. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about it. I'd be at work staring at code, and suddenly I'd remember Morgan's laugh when she told that story. The casual cruelty of it. After about a month of this, I made a decision. I was going to tell Mark everything. It was insane. I knew it was insane. This wasn't my business. Mark was a stranger. I had no obligation to blow up his life just because I had information he didn't. But here's the thing. If I were Mark, I'd want to know. I'd want someone to tell me before I signed a marriage certificate and legally tied myself to someone who'd been betraying me from day one. So I did the research. Qley had mentioned Mark's last name once in passing. Between that, Morgan's Instagram, which was public, because of course it was, and some basic internet stalking, I found him on LinkedIn. Mark Henderson, 30 years old, operations manager at a construction company. From his photos, he looked exactly how I'd pictured him. Genuine smile, pictures with his family, the kind of guy who probably coaches Little League in his spare time. I sent him a message. "Hey Mark, I know this is going to sound weird, but I need to talk to you about something important. It's about Morgan. I used to date her friend Qley, and there are some things you should know before the wedding. Can we meet somewhere in person?" I promise I'm not crazy, just a guy trying to do the right thing. I sent it at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday and immediately regretted it. What if he thought I was insane? What if he told Morgan and then Morgan told Qley, and suddenly I had 3 angry women and their families after me? He responded at 6 a.m. "I don't know you, but yeah, we can meet." When and where? We met at a quiet bar on the edge of downtown. The kind of place that's too dive-y for the after-work crowd, but not dive-y enough to have character. Perfect neutral ground. I got there first, ordered a beer I didn't really want, and tried to figure out how to start a conversation that begins with, "Your fiancé is cheating on you." Mark walked in 15 minutes later. He was taller than I expected, built like someone who actually uses their gym membership. But the thing I noticed most was his face. He looked tired, not sleepy tired, but soul tired. The kind of tired that comes from suspecting something's wrong but not being able to prove it. "Jake," he asked. I stood up. "Yeah, thanks for coming." We shook hands. He ordered a beer. We sat in uncomfortable silence for about 30 seconds before he broke it. "So, Morgan." "Yeah, what about her?" I pulled out my phone, pulled up the screenshots I'd saved. Text messages between Qley and me where Qley had casually mentioned covering for Morgan. Times, dates, places. Not everything, but enough. "I dated Qley for about a year," I said. "Morgan and Lexi are her best friends, have been since middle school." "I know who they are." "Right. So, over the year I was with Qley, I watched Morgan repeatedly cheat on you. And I watched Qley lie to you about where Morgan was and what she was doing. I slid my phone across the table, let him read the messages. His face didn't change. He just read, scrolling slowly, taking it all in. When he finished, he pushed the phone back to me and took a long drink of his beer. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. Why tell me now? Why not months ago?" Honestly, I didn't think it was my place. But then I ended things with Qley and I couldn't stop thinking about what she told me. About you, about the ring. I paused. $10,000 is a lot of money to spend on someone who doesn't respect you. Mark laughed, but there was no humor in it. I worked 60-hour weeks for 4 months to save up for that ring. Overtime every weekend. Morgan wanted a specific cut, a specific size. I wanted her to have exactly what she wanted. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm the idiot who didn't see it. You're not an idiot, you're trusting. There's a difference. We sat there for a while, not talking. Just two guys drinking beer and processing the fact that the people we'd cared about were fundamentally different than who we thought they were. Finally, Mark spoke. "I've suspected for a while," he admitted. Little things that didn't add up. She'd come home at weird hours, her stories wouldn't match up, she'd be defensive when I asked simple questions. But every time I'd get close to confronting her, Qley would back up whatever story Morgan had told me. And I thought, well, if her best friend is vouching for her, maybe I'm just being paranoid. "You weren't being paranoid." "No, I wasn't." He finished his beer. "What do I do now?" "That's up to you." "What would you do?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "I'd end it," I said. "Not because I'm vindictive or want revenge, but because if she's doing this before the wedding, she's going to keep doing it after. And then you'll have a mortgage together, maybe kids, and it'll be 10 times harder to leave. Better to cut the loss now while you still can." Mark nodded slowly. Yeah, that makes sense." "Do you have family, friends, people who can support you through this?" "My brother, a few buddies from work." "Good, you're going to need them." We finished our beers. When the check came, I grabbed it before Mark could. "My round," I said. "Least I can do." "You didn't have to do any of this." "Yeah, I did. If I were you, I'd want someone to tell me." We stood up to leave. At the door, Mark stopped and turned to me. "Thank you," he said. "Seriously, I know that took guts. Just doing what's right. Most people wouldn't." "Then most people are cowards." We exchanged numbers. I told him to call if he needed anything, even if it was just someone to talk to who understood what he was going through. I drove home that night feeling like I'd either done something incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both. Mark moved fast. By the time Morgan got home that night, all her stuff was in garbage bags in the hallway of their apartment. Her clothes, her makeup, the boxes of wedding invitations they just received, all of it. Mark had also called the venue, canceled the wedding, and contacted a lawyer about getting the deposits back. The engagement ring was sitting on top of one of the bags with a note that just said, "Return this." Morgan lost her mind. I know this because Mark texted me updates throughout the night, partly to keep me informed and partly because he needed someone to talk to who wasn't screaming at him. "She's calling me every 5 minutes. Won't stop crying. Now her mom's calling, asking how I could do this to their family. Qley just texted saying I'm making a huge mistake and should talk to Morgan in person. Lexi says I'm ruining Morgan's life over a misunderstanding." I replied to each one with the same message: stay strong. You're doing the right thing. The nuclear fallout lasted about a week. Morgan's family tried everything. Her dad called Mark's work, tried to get him fired. Her mom showed up at his apartment, pounded on the door for an hour before the neighbors called the cops. Qley and Lexi launched a coordinated social media campaign painting Mark as an abusive, controlling ex-fiancé who'd kicked Morgan out for no reason. But Mark held the line. Every time someone called to scream at him, he'd calmly explain what Morgan had done, offer to show them proof if they wanted it, and then hang up when they kept yelling. The turning point came that first weekend after the breakup. Mark had been holed up in his apartment, miserable and second-guessing everything. I called him Friday night. "You doing okay?" "Define okay." "Fair, you want to get out of there. My boys and I are hitting this brewery tomorrow night. You should come." "I don't know, man. I'm not really in a social mood." You don't have to be social, you just have to show up and drink beer, we'll handle the rest. He agreed reluctantly. The next night Mark met us at this brewery in the Highlands. My crew was already there, Connor, Davis, and my buddy Miguel, who'd driven in from Boulder specifically for this. I'd filled them in on the situation, kept it brief and factual. "This is Mark," I said when he arrived. "Mark, these are the boys." They treated him like he'd been part of the group for years. No awkward questions about what happened, no forced sympathy. Just genuine acceptance. Connor bought him a beer. Davis started telling this ridiculous story about a camping trip gone wrong. Miguel got him into a heated debate about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie. For the first time since I'd met him, Mark laughed. Really laughed. We were about an hour in when things got interesting. This guy walked into the brewery. Mid-30s, wearing a polo shirt 2 sizes too small for his biceps, the kind of aggressive body language that screams, "I started 3 fights in college and won 2 of them." He spotted Mark immediately, started walking toward our table with purpose. "That's Morgan's brother," Mark said quietly. "Jason." Connor stood up first. He's 6'3", played defensive line in college, and has the kind of presence that makes people reconsider their choices. Davis and Miguel stood up half a second later. I stood up last, mostly because I was blocked in by the table. We didn't say anything, didn't threaten, didn't posture, just stood there as a unit, forming a physical barrier between this guy and Mark. Jason stopped about 10 feet away. You could see the calculation happening in his head. He'd come here ready to defend his sister's honor, probably throw a few punches, be the hero of the story. But now he was facing 4 guys who clearly had no interest in letting that happen, and the math wasn't working out in his favor. "This isn't over," he said, which is what guys always say when they realize they're not going to fight. "Yeah, it is," Connor said. "Not aggressive, just matter of fact. Your sister cheated. Mark found out, that's the whole story." Jason looked like he wanted to argue, but then he just turned and left. We sat back down. Mark was staring at us like we just pulled him out of a burning building. "You guys don't even know me," he said. "Sure we do," Davis said. "You're the guy who got screwed over by a cheater and had the balls to walk away. That's all we need to know." "Plus," Miguel added, "Jake vouched for you, that's good enough for us." Mark looked at me, I just shrugged. "That's what friends do," I said. "I'm not your friend, we met once. You are now." The story should probably end there. Good guy gets saved, bad guys get what's coming to them, everyone moves forward. But reality doesn't do clean endings. The implosion of Morgan's life had a domino effect. First, the engagement ring. Mark had paid for it in full, which meant legally it was his to return. He took it back to the jeweler, got about 70% of the purchase price back as store credit, and immediately used it to buy himself a new watch. Then he posted a picture of the watch on Instagram with the caption, "New chapter, new time." Morgan saw it, lost her mind again, claimed he'd stolen her ring even though they'd never legally married. Then there was the wedding venue situation. Mark had put down the deposits using his money, which meant when he canceled, the refund went to him. Morgan tried to argue that she should get half, even though she hadn't contributed anything. Her lawyer told her she had no case. But the really spectacular collapse happened with Qley and Lexi. See, when Mark left, Morgan lost her primary source of validation and financial stability. She'd been planning to be a stay-at-home wife, maybe work part-time doing something creative. Now she had to find a full-time job, rent her own apartment, and face the fact that everyone in their social circle knew exactly why Mark had left. She was furious. And when people get that kind of angry, they need someone to blame. She chose Qley. According to the messages Mark forwarded me, because Morgan was still texting him, even though he'd blocked her number on his phone, and she'd started using apps that hide the caller ID. Morgan was telling everyone that Qley had encouraged her to explore her options, and that this is all Qley's fault for making me think it was okay. Qley, understandably, was pissed. She fired back, pointing out that Morgan had been cheating on Mark for months before Qley even knew about it, and all she'd done was cover for her a few times because that's what friends do. The texts between them got nasty. Personal attacks, old grudges from middle school, the kind of vicious honesty that only comes out when a friendship is actively dying. Lexi, trying to play mediator, ended up getting caught in the crossfire. She told Morgan to take responsibility for her own choices, which Morgan interpreted as taking Qley's side. So Morgan turned on Lexi too, bringing up the fact that Lexi's open relationship was actually just Lexi cheating while Tyler stayed home with their kid. The group chat they'd had since middle school dissolved in about 48 hours. A decade plus of friendship gone. But the best part, the absolute poetry of the whole situation. Tyler left Lexi. I found this out through Mark, who found out through one of Morgan's angry texts where she was ranting about how everyone's life is falling apart. Apparently, Tyler had heard about Mark standing up for himself, about a guy who'd been in a similar situation deciding he deserved better, and something clicked. Tyler packed his stuff, took Noah, filed for custody, and moved back in with his parents. Left Lexi with the full rent on their apartment, no free childcare, and the sudden realization that open relationship doesn't mean much when you're single and broke. Lexi, predictably, tried to paint herself as the victim, posted this long thing on Facebook about how she was healing from a toxic relationship and learning to love herself. The comments section was brutal. Mutual friends who'd watched her treat Tyler like a live-in babysitter for years all came out with their real opinions. One girl wrote an entire essay about how Lexi had laughed about manipulating Tyler into the open relationship by threatening to leave him if he didn't agree. Lexi deleted the post after an hour and made her account private. 3 months after my conversation with Mark at that bar, the four of us, me, Mark, Connor, Davis, and Miguel, were having a barbecue at my place. It was one of those perfect Colorado afternoons. Sun out, mountains visible, just warm enough to be outside without a jacket. We'd grilled entirely too much meat, had entirely too much beer, and were arguing about whether the Broncos had any chance of being competitive this season. Mark looked different, better. He'd started working out more, not in the desperate I need to change everything way, but in the healthy I have energy again way. He'd gotten a promotion at work, started hanging out with his brother more, joined our weekly pickup basketball game. You know what the weirdest part is, he said at one point when the conversation had quieted down. What's that? I asked. I'm happier now than I was when I was engaged, like significantly happier. How messed up is that? Not messed up at all, Connor said. You were engaged to someone who didn't respect you. Now you're not. Math checks out. I spent so much time trying to make her happy, Mark continued. Making sure the ring was perfect, that the wedding plans were what she wanted, that I was earning enough to support the lifestyle she wanted. And she was just destroying me the whole time. That's what manipulative people do, Davis said. They make you think you're the problem, that if you just tried harder, were better, earned more, gave more, then they'd finally be happy. But they're never happy because the problem was never you. You think they're happy now? Mark asked. Morgan, Qley, Lexi, I thought about it, really thought about it. No, I said. I don't think people like that are ever really happy. They're too busy chasing validation to actually build anything real. Good, Mark said, then he laughed. Is that petty? That feels petty. It's not petty, Miguel said, it's justice. They destroyed relationships, manipulated people, and faced no consequences for years. Now they are. That's not petty, that's just cause and effect. Mark raised his beer. To cause and effect, then. We all clinked bottles. And to Jake, Mark added, looking at me, for having the balls to do what most people wouldn't. Just following the bro code, I said. What's the bro code? Miguel asked. Help your brothers, even the ones you don't know yet. I haven't talked to Qley since I ended things. Blocked her number, blocked her on social media, removed her from my life completely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she tried to blame me for ruining Morgan's life, and that she'd posted some rant about me being controlling and abusive. The people who actually knew me didn't believe her. The people who didn't know me well enough to judge weren't people whose opinions I cared about. Here's what I learned from the whole experience. 1. Your girlfriend's friends tell you everything you need to know about who she really is. If she's willing to sit at a table with people who have no moral compass, she doesn't have one either. It doesn't matter if she's never personally done the bad thing. Enabling bad behavior is its own form of bad behavior. 2. Silence isn't always golden. Sometimes the right thing to do is speak up, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's not technically your business. Mark deserved to know the truth before he signed a marriage certificate. Tyler deserved to see that other guys had stood up for themselves and survived. Sometimes being a good person means doing something awkward and difficult because it's right. 3. Brotherhood is real. I didn't know Mark before I sent that LinkedIn message, but the guys in my life treated him like family the second I told them he needed support. That's what actual friendship looks like. Not covering for each other's worst behavior, but showing up when someone needs help rebuilding. 4. Consequences are real. Morgan lost her engagement, her housing, her friend group, and her social standing. Lexi lost her free childcare, her financial stability, and her victim narrative. Qley lost the moral high ground she'd been pretending to occupy. None of that happened because I was vindictive. It happened because their actions had natural consequences, and when Mark removed himself from the situation, the whole toxic structure collapsed. And Mark's doing great. He's dating again, taking it slow, being way more careful about red flags. He comes to our pickup games, joins us for beers, and generally acts like a guy who dodged a bullet and knows it. As for me, I'm single and not particularly bothered by it. After Qley, I'm a lot more careful about who I spend my time with. I pay attention to who someone's friends are, what they enable, what they excuse. I look for consistency between what someone says they value and what they actually do. It's a higher bar. But I'd rather be alone than be with someone who makes me complicit in destroying someone else's life. Last weekend, Mark texted me out of nowhere. "Thanks for that day at the bar. Changed my whole life." I replied, "That's what brothers do." Because at the end of the day, that's really all there is to it. You see someone in trouble, you help them. You see someone being deceived, you tell them the truth. You see someone about to make a catastrophic mistake, you warn them. Not because you'll get anything out of it, but because it's the right thing to do. The bro code isn't about covering for each other's worst impulses. It's about helping each other be better, about building something real instead of enabling something toxic. Morgan, Lexi, and Qley are probably somewhere right now, sitting in separate apartments, blaming everyone but themselves for how their lives turned out. Maybe they'll learn something from it. Probably they won't. But Mark's happy. Tyler's building a better life with his kid. And I'm sitting here on my deck with a beer and my dog, watching the sun set over the mountains, knowing I did the right thing. That's enough for me.